proceedings where there's been some sort of adjudication or some type of agreement to resolve the road issues. That section. Yeah. Two objections. First, which was always spreadsheets related activities, balance, operations, 2000 to 2010. So that's really no combination with that.
I think there's three sets.
Right.
One spreadsheet. Yeah. Similar to that. With the third topics. Same. That's the way it's in essence character.
So I recall trying to translate all was appearing objection any because it's I would but not object to documents restraints proceeding execution maybe we should run like this as predecessor patient being admitted and sticking.
Well, there's a second set of spreadsheets.
Spreadsheets. My understanding is we're going to have copies. So
That's right. And they all.
our issue with regard to spreadsheets is the hearsay violation, the competition. Suggest beyond the hearsay, what's the context of the objection?
It reflects those.
So there's no violation by the human spreadsheets. Yeah. Sorry, I have in addition to the documentary is protecting keys of funds about the operations, stormwater operations. Those there, so township, and that is some information. Or the applicant have reached out to
Yes.
was everybody on?
With respect to that last.
Mr. Sweeney, I believe it's in evidence already. It's protected to the exhibit 6.
Your argument is there's some obligation part of the developer to demonstrate compliance with violation of the agreement between the
Correct, at least coordination as it pertains to the ENF control. That may be affected by the construction of the compressor station, but certainly check the operations under the declaration of contribution.
That was marked. That was marked as exhibit best. That document marked effective exhibit 6, but even the was a problem. Back.
Let's make hard to package. Is that hard to exhibit?
No, that's a fact. You see,
I understand that. Must be package.
that the development area. Warm water. Maintenance and operation. It's not. It's not part of the application.
Mr. Sweeney, I do want to, I don't remember the provision off the top of my head, but I do believe in the application and ordinance, there was an obligation for Hyperion to disclose potential land use agreements that the construction and operation of the compressor station. I don't remember off the top of my head where that is.
Okay, I think we're on the same page. Okay. So. Yeah. Session. Okay. So here's the side. Which issue, which way is. So this issue. Protect. That's already. Straight was. It's those, yeah. I think. Dating January 2010. So, Mr. Chairman. Should. We just like to, the objection is. Objection is.
All consistent. Relate to us, finally, as a professional.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Those. Motion carries.
Okay, next. Issue. The civil consent. Years of assessments related to its predecessor. So the same type of objection. Those are good. There's no objection to talking against themselves.
That's correct. We questioned the relevance, the weight of the, we don't have active documents.
Okay, so those will be able to admit those, and I think that's going to be a stipulation. Then with regard to the spreadsheets that Hyperion uppers have no information. At this issue, because it's proceeding, it's been raised in prior applications. Board can make some decision. The objection is that the NOB is that it's hearsay. Objection. Spreadsheet. Your motion would be to sustain this objection, and so the information doesn't come in, or to open the objection. She doesn't.
I would mention, sustain. Sorry. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
So the final thing would be individuals prepared to hear evidence concerning the stormwater regulations. Township and deputies of urban that there was an obligation for the applicant to disclose that information in its application, to have some type of way of its efforts to comply with those conditions that is that fair?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Smith.
So again, the objection is that it's not to proceed. Motion to stay. Object to stay. Not relevant. Motion second.
I make a motion to sustain.
Objection. Second. Opposed? Motion carries. Yes. board is going to accept. Okay. It's the actual documents that show. Civil penalty consent orders, agreements or civil penalty assessments related to the site's predecessor. Explanation.
Yes, Mr. Sweeney, we have,
Gotta do that stipulation.
oh, Mr. Sweeney, we do have an objection, with respect to the form and content of what was to be delivered by Hyperion. And through Ms. Graber's testimony, we'll walk through the ordinance and the application itself with respect to the obligation on Hyperion to provide copies of enforcement notices and other agreements as set forth in the ordinance. So we do want to put that on the record.
I think that just said that to hear that information is something different.
Oh, this is not bow and arrow. I'm sorry. This is
What's the problem?
that Ms. Graber is going to testify with respect to her review of the application in light of the ordinance and the requirement for Hyperion to provide copies of all enforcement notices and agreements like consent orders and civil penalties. Hyperion listed on it the same complaints that Mr. Lucas has with respect to the spreadsheets Protect PT prepared. His client prepared a spreadsheet, and that's what was submitted with the application. There were no copies of the agreements, and the spreadsheet only contained, I think, 7 consent order and civil penalty agreements when there are at least 40 others that Olympus has been subject to. And so we want the opportunity to be able to work through the ordinance and what was actually put in the application.
If in what is protected team's position about that these identified sections are like
Well, there are 2 points that I think are important. Number one, that Hyperion did not comply with the application requirements and failed to submit a complete application. The township and its interest is the one who put the requirement for these copies to be within an application. So it's the township who requires this information, and there's a good reason for it with respect to an operator that cannot continue to follow the law, a serial violator of the law. It's indicative of future operations.
It's our position that we provide everything that's required of the ordinance. Instead of protecting teams articulating that argument, that's a legal argument. They can address that, those findings, conclusions. Since Ms. Graber can add nothing to that, the boards would admit, I don't know the exhibit number that's been marked yet, but this was the what we'll call the adjudications, that stipulation we put in evidence. Ms. Graber has no firsthand knowledge of these, so I don't know how she can testify to any of these. To the extent there's first time, to the extent there's an argument that somehow the application is incomplete, that's a legal argument. That's not a factual argument that we need Ms. Graber to testify.
Well, number one, we need to get it on the record, but number two, the documents that Hyperion provided that we're supposed to stipulate to, 2 of them are not signed and they do not match up with the spreadsheet that was provided by Hyperion in the application. So we don't even have the documents that and 2 of them are not effective because they're not signed, that Hyperion referenced in the application.
sections of something.
Yes, and the reason I understand we do not have signed copies of those is that Olympus executes that their side of it, sends it to DEP then executes it. But Olympus has no record of DEP ever sending back the fully signed document. We'll agree that they're valid legal documents. In fact, the financial numbers contained in there were paid by Olympus. So in these documents do match up. One more recent one that the press, they match up with that spreadsheet. I'm sorry, council, we won't sit down and look at that, but they match up with that spreadsheet.
So your objection to this bill, back to the same hearsay.
Yeah. And then
she has no firsthand knowledge. She's not the private party.
Correct, and to the extent the contention is that, I agree with this, that the application is complete. That's a leading question. They can articulate, you don't need a fact witness on that, they can articulate that with proposed findings, conclusions, or they can point out that section. Now, I don't think that's a proper subject for testimony by a fact witness here.
The only issue is we need to get it on the record that there are other enforcement actions that Hyperion did not provide with the application. So in order for us to make an argument and a brief or a finding of fact, we have to have that on the record. And so
One more violation proceedings that outlined application. So. It's right. It's right.
So we took the spreadsheets. One was 300 plus pages. I don't expect anybody to go through that. But what we did is we took all of the violation language out of this document. And it is merely a spreadsheet showing the consent order and agreements and civil penalties. And we marked which ones were noted in the application, and we marked which ones post-dated the application. And there are at least 41 consent orders or civil penalties that were assessed against Olympus or its predecessor that were included in the disclosure in the application. We need to have that on the record in order to make the legal argument later.
Not prepared to say you should have supplemented the information in the application.
We disagree, and we went from Olympus here, and he testified that the packet that was transmitted to council, and I understand the Barclays exhibit referred to communication, reflects all consent assessment of civil penalties, orders, and civil penalty assessments that have levied against Olympus in total.
What are these elements?
I have no idea. This is, we could have Mr. Cleveland confirm this, and that's just hearsay documents printed off the website.
Hyperion presented purported hearsay documents in the application. In any event, it violates the ordinance, and I can give you the specific ordinance.
When again at the crossroads, what's the proper way to introduce this evidence? Okay, I'll leave this up to the board. They're asking to have Ms. Graber testify of rejection that she investigated based on what she saw in the DEP website. There appears believe there are violations that have occurred since the application was filed. Is that correct?
Yes, and I would just state that that is protect peace business. That's what Ms. Graber does. So this is.
It's
So here's
it's still hearsay.
Well, it shouldn't be hearsay because they should have presented it in the application first of all.
So the board would have to decide whether or not I recommend this decision. The board would have to decide if this material can come in over the hearsay objection of the applicant that it appears based on its previous research as executive director of TET that set orders of administrative proceedings. So on and so forth since the application is filed.
Prior to the application being filed. Yes, we're not including the ones that were issued after the application.
So, Mr. Chairman, we're to make a decision whether it's be allowed to testify to should allow Israel to testify. Five issues. Well, we should frame it. It should either be to sustain the hearsay injection, to remove the greater proper, or to remove the hearsay injections.
Isn't there another way to resolve this? I mean, you say there's 40, you say there's 7. It's a legal issue, right?
This document that our witness will testify, this is the totality of those notice of those consent orders and assessments, similar adjudications.
And where does the other legend website?
Yes, sir. That identify consent orders and civil penalties. The particular well site, and
Get into the
okay.
You have a motion, you have a discussion on the motion. If could there be a stipulation to the testimony of Ms. Graber that her investigation revealed 40 additional administrative proceedings? Mr. Cleveland refute that. His testimony would be, no, there's only 7. They're incorrect. Can we?
Well, we're not going to stipulate that there were 40.
No. You're not saying that. No. We would accept, this is what, to ask what it means. Her testimony would be what's been brought. Mr. Cleveland's testimony would be to contradict it. So the board's got to decide. About that.
If that'll move things along.
Okay, so before you decide the motion,
We're in agreement with that.
so this document is nothing about interviews.
Nothing.
So Ms. Graber's testimony would be that she's the executive director of the tech team, part of the duties, research things such as the civil administrative proceedings we're talking about. She believes that the additional administrative proceedings that were not included in the application. And Mr. Cleveland, that's his position.
That
Oops.
they're all always
Vice President of Environmental Health Safety, right?
Mr. Cleveland's testified to the board before, Vice President of Health. His rebuttal would be there are 7 administrative actions solving some type of disposition or something. Ms. Graber was
That's the gist of it, Mr.
like,
Sweeney.
that just
yes. We would just note it. Allow that in, we would just note that SAC.
you're not speculating that that's it.
I'm not stipulating that SAC.
Right, just that this is what she would say, this is what it's, so we're not here.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so stipulations, agreement, parties, that this party testified as I described. So you take that. If the win is appropriate, just like that, should have that. Or you can include this all part or testimony, same thing. Okay. Everybody on the same page. So that 7 documents.
I don't even have copies of those. Do you want to mark this as a joint exhibit?
No,
No,
I think what we do is says I have tech T32.
that's correct.
These are the 7. These are the 7.
Yes.
Here's what we do. Mark this board and said for 5. So that's not fair.
Yes, thank you. That's so. He's marking.
What is this?
Those are copies of the same.
Uh,
All of those are in.
copies of the such agreements. District proceedings we talked about. So, Mark has already said it.
Then what's exhibit technically 32?
I did mark 13.
Oh, okay. It's gonna be
31 was boundary. Else for this.
Yes, Mr. Sweeney.
So. just protect the, I understand what this is what it's testifying. This issue of protect standings. So, I understand that's the section.
Mr. Sweeney, just to back up, so is it my understanding that the stipulation to Ms. Graber's testimony isn't supported with the admission of this spreadsheet that does not contain any notices of violation, in order for the board to be able to review and understand what it is the stipulated testimony refers to? Without this, there's not a lot of context.
Right, that's protected TVs. And again, we have application. Yes, it's not.
And I do want to note that the highlighted entries were on the spreadsheet that application in yellow, and then the magenta highlighted items were subsequent to the submission of the application.
So that's. That finishes Johnson.
May I check with my time quickly? I'm almost positive, but just let me ask quickly.
Okay,
Thank
I understand based on conversations. That's great.
And that I just confirmed, that's correct. Yes.
Do you have any?
part about patient techniques. Okay, you're
Yes. But let's have them go to the table. Okay. So, Mr. Rainbow.
again, your exclusion.
This energy.
What we have city here.
So that's right.
What is the position?
I'm the vice president, of environmental health and safety and regulatory.
And what can go wrong? What is
Overall responsibility for environmental health, safety, and regulatory. Yeah, also, bias.
Which first name is
Scott. SC.
District legal that place before you park. 5, you identify.
This is the first page is assessment of civil county, but I believe it's 7 orders that were Agreed upon between.
And there's, they those become three forms, right? Set assessments, penalty, there can be civil penalty assessment, lateral, but from DEP, correct, correct. And then it was what's set for. Is this the totality of all the communications? By DEP, where it was paid, so,
That's correct at the time of the application.
and this is also including one of the payments, is that?
Of the system. Yes, sorry,
That would be
that's the sort.
in the top. One that was this entered this year.
Okay, so total.
With respect to all of this, I mean, my review of exhibit, the last date of violation, July 14th, and like,
Yes,
that it's valid would be. All of
that's the model.
it, that's correct. And it's narrow question. Since July of 2020, how many wells constructed?
9,
How many wells?
80 bucks,
How many compressor stations?
2,
How many interconnect?
4,
How many miles of pipeline?
21 miles.
Now, we mentioned Celine. Counting back. Stock, it's 18 pages back. Didn't have the assessment, dated March 2020. Okay,
I think that would do.
okay. I'm looking at it. What? If you could subscribe.
Sure, so this was a well pad referral. This was during the start of construction. May of 2022. We did receive some heavy precipitation. There was some erosion and sedimentation issues out there. And so we received at first the notice of violation. Everything was corrected within 1 week's time. Then a bit later, we received something from the DEP where we entered into an agreement, which was a civil penalty assessment. We decided to sign the civil penalty assessment, even though we did not agree. But we paid.
At that was making it. Store.
That's correct.
Yeah. So that's rectified.
Correct.
Does the DEP ever deny this application basis of existence of any of these communications?
Yeah.
Boards already ruled.
I know it needs to go in or space. Convention.
Was testimony by Mr. Cagano about coordination for responders. Did you walk through what efforts Olympus had made for that regard with respect to responders?
Sure. First interaction with the Penn Township first responders back early 2020, actually in this room. We went through a desktop, a tabletop exercise with them. Situation that was on us to see how incident command would be stood up and how we would interact with first responders. We do that in all of our townships. We do that at least once a year, not with each township, but we offer to different townships that were if requested. We're happy to set those up. In 2021,
Specifically, possibly how many people attended that and what specific organizations participated.
so that was attended by about 40 people. The Department of Public Safety, Westmoreland County Hazmat, Penn Township Emergency Management, Clare VFD, and Harrison City.
Yeah, so that's the first.
That's
Effort. What was the next?
The next one was a tour of our Gaia site here in Fenn Township, in July of 2021, where our safety manager had Claire's VFD, Harrison City VFD, Penn Township EMA, PT EMA, Penn Township Police, Little Green VFD, Paintertown VFC, and brand new VFD. And what we do is in the townships we operate, we invite first responders to site visits so that they understand what a site looks like. That could be during any phase. It could be during a drilling operation, application operation, or in production. We answer questions and it's to give an overall understanding of how the sites operate, and if there were to be an emergency, what types of things.
So you had any other, as long as had any other actions with first responders of last year?
Yes, just in February of this year, again, our safety manager came and gave a presentation to the local emergency responders. Our presentation generally walks those individuals through kind of the life cycle of pad construction to drilling, to completions, to production. It just gives them a background on what goes into all of those things.
What organization participated?
That was Harrison City VFD, PT EMA, Claridge VFD, Grandview VFD, Level Green VFD, Paintertown VFD, and Manor for EM.
Have there been any other?
There was one more interaction that was requested. If we could provide access to a site so that the Penn Township EMA could perform a rescue drill. We did not have anything in Sept Township where that would have been appropriate at the time. So we held that up referral. And people, the Penn Township EMA, along with our team, out there rescue drills on our site in our well cellars. So they're quite deep. So you can't necessarily go down and rescue something or two falling. So they were able to perform rescue drills with the apparatus that
Does Olympus or area anticipate the future coordination with first responders related?
Yes, so recently we started up our first compressor station in Upper Pearl. So now we have an opportunity to take other townships to an actual operating compressor station. And again, similarly to the other tours, make them familiar with our operations, all the safety in place, and what they would have to do in case.
So some testimony from Mr. Cat disclosures first responders, specifically claim that the industry is exempt from compliance with Sarah 3 elaboration on what the reality is there.
Sure. So we are not exempt from Sarah Title 3 Tier 2. We do have to submit an initial report for materials coming on site within 5 days. We also have to submit an annual Tier 2 report that includes all the SDS sheets that were brought on site. That is submitted online to PA Department of Labor and Industry and also the county, and then hard copies are supplied to local PFDs. And again, annual report, which is due March 1st of every year. That goes hard copy and electronic to the state and copies to the PFDs.
You mentioned the SDS, some testimony, other witnesses about that. Where are SDS sheets?
So a couple of different places, depending on this, the site type. On a normal producing pad, drilling pad, they're all well and they're always in our site mailbox out at the street, the entrance to our pad,
Because that's some distance away.
it is normally some distance, but it could vary. If it is during completion or drilling operation, there are also SDS sheets on site with what we call our on-site representative in the trail, so they have access. If there are companies on site with their own chemicals on production site, they're required to have SDSs for all their chemicals. In the case of a compressor station In addition to the site mailbox, we have several buildings on site that SDS sheet would be available. And additionally, we have access at any time from an app or computer to access any SDSs on any of our sites today.
That's
Yes.
share.
Or to share.
That's all I got.
To the costs.
Yes, please, thank you.
Still related. We
Yes, I only have one question. I'm sorry. Do you have in front of you, are you reading from the notes or? When you can copy those? notes?
Oh, that's civil.
So, Mr. Cleveland, you testified that this set of agreements constitutes all of the potential consent orders or civil penalties. And so, would you agree that if you turn to the agreement that's dated April 3rd, 2023, for Exhibit 5? It's not happening, it's out in the middle of the document. Stats, it's called civil penalty assessment. Now this start date. April 23. And Mr. Cleveland, is it correct that that was the, except for the Slovene order that was in March of 2024, April 3rd, 2023 is the last consent order for civil penalty assessment?
Don't believe so. The record, it's either Gaia or then yes, I believe that's correct.
So if we go to Protect PT's Exhibit 32, you might not copy this, but I marked a few of the entries here. Mr. Cleveland, what about events that happened subsequent to April 2023 that may have been subject to consent order civil penalty assessment? Are you aware of any events after April of 2023?
I mean, Plutus to Apollo a bit before that.
So
There's no, there's only one for the Elizabeth pipelines, which include Plutus to Apollo as well.
So with respect to these agreements here, they may relate to a site, correct?
A site, yes, or yes,
And then the date of the consent for the civil penalty is an ending, that any violations or civil penalty assessments or consent orders after the date of this agreement would not be included in one of these agreements, correct?
did you say that?
Okay. So let's say, for example, the first one, the consent of civil penalty of May of 2021. You see that?
Switching up sites.
Yeah, just to make it easier, it's the first page, correct?
Okay,
And if you go to the second page, is it true that the site is the Plutus well pad? Do you say CEDO?
that's correct. Let's see. Yes,
And so the date of this agreement is May 25th of 2021. So I'm asking you if there was an event or an administrative enforcement on this site after May 25th of 2021, it's not included in the stock.
because it doesn't exist.
So with respect to, we go back to, so if you go,
Hold on a second. So if something happens after May 23rd, that's a new event.
It's a new, that's correct.
That would generate a new set of
It could, or it,
Well, I understand.
yes, you're correct.
You're not going to amend or something.
That's all. Anything new, the new.
So, Mr. Cleveland, if you go to number 18 on the first page of that sheet, are you aware of any consent order civil penalty on Apollo B to Dominion Pipeline, November 2023? If you go to item number 30, are you aware of any October 25th, 2023 with respect to civil assessment of the civil penalty? So is it your testimony that there are no other events that have occurred at any Olympus sites or Hyperion sites that form or are part of any consent orders or civil penalties that are not in the stack of seven?
That's correct. I've been here for all the two of them for Zeus and Midas, so I've been involved in every single thing that has happened since. And
So with respect to the agreements that are in front of you right now, did you fill out the application for this matter? Were you responsible for the application? And did you review the application before it was submitted? And did you review the section on what was to be included with the application?
Gotcha.
So if we go to the application at page 19 of the application. And this is just an excerpt from that page. And that's the way it was.
No, I know.
Okay, so I think.
I would just note that written at the bottom is the one.
It's really
I'm sorry.
for 10 PTs.
It's part of the application. Oh, steps there. Part of it. So,
Just for reference purposes. Ms. Johnson, just want to anticipate. I'm guessing this is all you submitted with the application, if that's representative.
Yeah, instead of
that.
we did not. No, we didn't. Okay.
And did you review the instructions for the application with respect to this particular point on what is to be submitted with the application? So that would be on page 12 out of 880 of the application, and I believe we have here.
that's not the app.
Where's the application?
I gave it to you. I don't know what you did with it.
Oh, sorry. Thanks. Appreciate the courtesy. This will be really fast. So it's actually on page 6 of the application. And it's some paragraph E. Could you just quickly read some paragraph E out loud?
Copies of any previous enforcement notices, fines, or penalties assessed against the applicant, applicant's contractors, consultants involved in the development of the proposed oil and gas operation.
So were you part of any discussions or decision making where the actual copies were not provided, but instead a spreadsheet was provided?
I don't remember having a conversation.
And if you go back to the sheet you have here. What does the fine print say at the bottom of the chart?
The above list does not include DEP notices of violation as they are not appealable and not findings of liability, and the board has previously ruled that they are inadmissible.
And I'm going to hand the witness a copy of the zoning ordinance, chapter 190, article 6. Mr. Sweeney, you want me to circulate a copy?
I think we're getting into legal argument.
Yeah, obviously, the sections requiring obviously violations attached to the petition. They table violations. Attach that.
Correct, and I think that Protect AT is entitled to admissions from that period that it not only did not follow the application instruction, it didn't follow the order.
Well, that's an argument.
Move on.
Got it, rather than- There's not going to be cross-examination. That's your argument that reflects on their character as a company and how they operate.
Thank you. And with respect to the rest of the application, were you involved with the PNS application for this project?
I mean, I have a team, the team is responsible.
Are you aware of whether or not the ENS application is included with this application?
That I,
This is the point of detail.
I will sustain that objection. It's beyond the scope. of testimony.
So with respect to first responder training, what other training have you done besides site visits? What sort of training have you talked?
addition to what I described.
Yes, please describe.
Again,
For training, yes, please describe the training.
we do training of power. We go through the life cycle of our activities from construction to drilling to completions to production. We did that here with the township earlier this year. We often offer an annual training to all first responders in any of our operating areas where we do the same. That generally happens towards the end of the year. Like I said, we do desktop emergency response drills with all the townships that we work with. We generally go out to the township and engage with them and go through the tabletop with them. Like I said, site visits. That's
So you should, is it correct that you show PowerPoints, you do desktop presentations, and you give site tours? Is that the extent of the first responder training?
I think the witness has testified is exactly what was done here. So I object to the form of the budget because it narrows the scope of what he actually said. The witness stuff.
I would like to say that we should be entitled to cross this witness. Mr. Scott Lucas and his condo spend 2 hours almost cross-examining one of our witnesses. I will be done in about 15 minutes.
Just told me. Just,
Well, with that
what's the
particular
problem?
practice, they actually don't do any meaningful first responder training.
Certainly we want to help on, have the people out there. Here's a spill, here's this or that. Something in addition to what I described is people going to the well and doing response there. Is that
Correct. And, real world examples were, say, for example, the consent order and civil penalties where they were discharges of industrial waste. Do you ever do lessons learned with first responders with respect to some of the environmental issues that your business cause?
We've never had to have a first responder address. But it's labeled industrial discharge, which is set into a stream during our construction. There's no need for a first responder to be trained on something that happens on most construction projects that are not just oil and gas. We focus on the emergencies that need their expertise.
And so what emergencies have you had the occasion to request first responder assistance?
We have never requested first responders assistance.
And with respect to the SDS sheets, are you,
I'm sorry, that's incorrect. Back up, I was saying, there have been a couple of injuries on site where we have requested first responder responses.
now, with respect to SDS sheets, are you aware of whether or not the SDS sheets that are associated with this project were included with the application?
I can't remember. We don't have a site yet, so it'd be SDS sheets for chemical.
So would you be using the same chemicals you're using at the compressor station you just built?
It's possible. That was built after the application, but it's also possible that we use different ones. We do switch chemicals on different, same similar process.
So is it your testimony that Hyperion does not know what chemicals it's going to use in this project?
We have not delayed the chemicals we're using in this project because we don't have.
And so with respect to SDS sheets that you may be familiar with respect to the other compressor station, are you aware of whether those SDS sheets provide for trade secret or proprietary chemicals? And with respect to the Sarah, I believe you said tier 2 reporting. Are you, is Olympus required to report its trade secret proprietary chemicals under that reporting?
I don't believe we are required to report trade secrets. That's something between the manufacturer.
So, but with respect to reporting out to Sarah, Olympus could report those chemicals, correct?
We report the SDS.
But Olympus could report a trade secret proprietary.
We do not. We report the SDS as they are given.
And does Olympus in other states that it's developed, has Olympus provided first responders with a list of all the trade secret proprietary chemicals that are being used at the site?
We provide this list.
So if the SDS sheet has a section that states that particular chemical is trade secret proprietary, do you go to get that information from first responders?
We just provide solutions.
Sorry.
We are given SAD data from the chemical manufacturer. That is what we provide in our tier 2 reports and hard copies to the VFs.
And if I understand it, they don't. There's a section that says this chemical is trade proprietary. They don't break that down. I just get the sheet. That's the. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So you sheet the first.
That's correct. There's a packet that has all the SDS sheets of the chemicals that we have.
So how does Olympus prepare for or manage chemical compatibility?
It's getting beyond the scope.
That's beyond the scope. To deal with the fire chief's testimony, first responder issues, and you're getting into details about.
Look back to the SDS sheets, but please, testimony was limited to how they're conveyed to first responders, not the substance of any, but
Something sustained.
My only point is that the testimony under Act appeared to convey that Olympus or Hyperion discloses its chemicals to first responders and the authorities. And so
Which is what he said. He was also some of that disclosure has a shield to it. It's proprietary trade.
that's correct. And first responders don't get that information.
I can understand.
And with respect to that information, the issue, if there is an accident, and there's a chemical compatibility issue, how does Hyperion or this prepare? What's the nearest hazmat to this site?
I know Harrison City VFD is VFD off the top of my head.
So have you done any training or PowerPoints or desktop presentations with any hazmat teams with respect to this site?
We don't. Project.
Okay, that's all I have.
Direct.
Yep.
Okay. At this point. Sure. Sorry.
COAs were. Except typically, it's all we expect or something, so.
It could be both, even if it's self-reported, typically that will follow a DEP inspection will follow. The DEP will now inspect, you can receive a notice of violation, which are alleged violations, and it can stop there. The DEP feels it needs to be elevated to an enforcement action that could contain a violation, so it could be upwards of 10, 15, 20 different inspections that are included in these orders. So, but it's one order maintaining numerous, alleged violations. So they just group them and package them. And you sign the order. So,
Now, I understood you say that once you do a approved project, then you could.
that's correct. And
Does that include education?
yeah, we're going through that process with Upper Pearl right now. And we're naming the first responders and getting them set up on site visits. We met with them to discuss that. The project, once we start getting the final planning stages, typically when we talk to first responders, until there's something to look at or until we're closer to a project, they don't necessarily to go through everything because it's so far away from actual operation. They'd rather us get closer to operations so that, it's fresh in their minds and the staffing they have at the time is still the same staff.
Any other questions? There's what, 7 actions here, right? Whatever.
Yes.
But tell us what they're, or like, what's the violation?
Yeah, they're generally E&S violations, mostly during construction. There was one well control incident in Elizabeth, which is the Apollo.
That involved the chemical release.
There was a release at surface, nothing left in that. There was no first responders called to that event. It was cleaned up and then it went through the Act 2 process. That's why we have no injuries.
Is there any, are there any recommendations from the chemical supplier to help dealing specific?
Yes, and that's contained within the SDS sheets. You also do have to worry about material compatibility. We have everything on secondary containment and operations enforcement.
Just more concerned about the trade secret chemicals. But since they do not give you that information, what the actual, do they have any recommendations on how to handle anything that could happen on site? Those trade secret chemicals.
Yeah, and again, trade secret might be a part of a larger, right? So the SDS sheet will tell you like handling instructions, things like that. And then if there's a spill, it says, here's what you should use to deal, here's an ink that you should use.
That's getting at certainly an actual the breakdown or list how to walk through trading situation. We're talking a lot about trade secret. What's the volume of trade secret chemicals like atoms?
I don't.
Are they part of another chemical or something?
That's correct. It could be a very minute part of a larger chemical composition.
But you don't have a tank or something.
I don't believe we have full tanks of trade secret. Else? Okay, so there's no further testimony. This is the time for it to accept testimony, comment. The citizens, residents that want to offer. So what I'll do is we work
And I'll ask if anybody from Senate chairs wants to come forward and address the board. At the record, we'll find no response. Going to a third row of chairs, is there anybody that wishes to address the board? Yes.
This really good. So, it's for- it's-
Would you please tell us your name?
Patricia, Honor Wendell, that is, no, leave that. 3006, that's. Good evening. This is going to be very short. You're not added to the experts related. And their professional information. The knowledge has been explained. We need to hazard to reason for that this board denies this nothing station. Scientists, environmental organizations, as well as protected team have listed the harms of methane compressor station during this hearing. Experts have shared their concerns related to the cumulative effect of the use of proprietary toxic chemicals and the disposal practices in this case were currently one well pad beside those well pad Aphrodite and the proposed methane compressor station with 5 compressors. Excuse me. My personal concern for this particular cumulative area of the oil and gas industry is a special concern to me because it's proximity to housing. Not just necessarily wood. I live in an area where now there is just a large growth single family house called the Greens at Blacksword. And I believe one of your board members actually lives. This is just not my concern, it's for my housing community is concerned and the residents' protection. With the compressor station, also, you have the added problem of air noise pollution, unless we forget the known and unknown home lines that are all through this area. I moved to this rural residential area, Penn Township, with woods and farming. Now I'm surrounded by the oil and gas industry sites, which sat are all near my area. I believe I have said this to the board in the past. A statement from my wise friend: give them an inch, take a mile. Well, no pun intended. One pad led to 2 to 3 to 4. Now we're looking at 5 with a compressor station. I'm requesting that you do not approve this application.
Thank you, sir. Samra, anybody else want to address? Moving to the last row.
So this for test screening today.
Could you tell us your name?
My name is Jane Christina. It's actually spelled L-A-Z-A. The last name is Listina. Small A. Capital S. P-I-N.
Your address, Mrs.
Sinatra Sanctuary. It's the nature sanctuary. And the address is 2032 Painterstown Road in Irvine, Pennsylvania. 156.
Is that in the township?
Yes, that's
Your relationship to the insurance?
That's part of my comment. So right now, it's a cemetery sanctuary, it's the nature preserve within which I've been reading. and advocated for since early 2019. Much of the 21 acres is forested by a biodiverse mix of mostly deciduous trees, and also contains 2 large pollinator meadows, as well as wetland ecologies. The land is partially adjacent to the tree club, driving distance to the location of the proposed compressor station. Wilderness Road is approximately 40 miles. This is a route I frequent when traveling to Pittsburgh up to and along Pleasant Valley Road, which is south of Valley Landfill, which is just south of the proposed Oregon compressor station, the proposed aggregate well pad, and the existing site. All gas company developments that are operated and or proposed by the energy company that has received over 600 notices of violation from Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection. The property out of which the nature sanctuary operates is owned by my mother, Carol Spina, resident and taxpayer in the township, who is here with us this evening. Additionally, she attended 4 previous zoning boards about this compressor station on March 14th, April 11th, June 13th, and July 11th. So I'd like to begin my public testimony with a quote from the Township's Comprehensive Plan 2021. It's on printed pages 253 and from page 27. And the quote is, pipelines, drilling pads, and wastewater storage facilities alter the built and natural landscape, potentially impact the property value of future use. All additionally, there is safety and environmental considerations that must be weighed against economic opportunities. To recap these previous hearings that I attended with myself, the following experts testified. Expert Mark Glass of Downstream Strategies testified that Hyperion's application does not address the alarming issue of radioactive particulate that would be released from the compressor station, nor does it take into account the hazardous aggregate effect, emitted pollutants, and radioactivity that would be compounded by the proposed station's proximity to the nearby propane gas well pads and the landfill. When particulate matter in our atmosphere increases from these polluting giants, we continually breathe in ever-growing amounts of contaminated airborne particles, thereby increasing our exposure to the harmful effects of radioactivity. We also heard from expert William Thornton of Thornton Acoustics, who testified that noise and vibrations from compressor stations are very low frequency with long wavelengths, similar to deep fog sounds, and that this vibrational noise created by the compressor's internal combustion equipment travels great distances and easily penetrates structures. He additionally testified that Hyperion's application did not have sufficient data to determine how to attempt mitigating some of the noise, that low frequency noises are fundamentally more difficult to attenuate, and he noted the ineffectiveness of the current township ordinance to control noise. Expert Mackenzie White, the environmental consultant to PT, testified to the impacts on pollution, including how the majority of emissions come from 3 sources. The first being fugitive emissions from equipment leaks over time. The second is from accidents with fires and explosions. And the third is emissions from maintenance blowdowns, which is the highest single emitter, as there is a rush of natural gas and airborne particulates intentionally released into the atmosphere. Ms. White testified that monitoring these emissions by measuring pollutants in tons per year does not make sense for impacts to health, as averaging out the size of events, such as blowdowns and explosions, does not correlate to the damage incurred by such intense blasts in such short periods of time. She further stated that repeated exposures to the types of toxic emissions from compressor stations compound over time long-term adverse effects on human health, including cancers. This way pointed to a lack of data in Hyperion's Commission's report and explained why it is dangerous to lump all volatile organic compounds, VOCs, together in terms of safe limits, as VOCs can have drastically different effects, from a scratchy throat to cancer. For example, there is no safe limit for benzene, and yet there are no limits on benzene emissions compressor station. Ultimately, Ms. White disputed his testimony that there will be minimal. Expert Sil Caggiano, currently a consultant with Buckeye Environmental, retired battalion chief of Next Howard, retired chief of William County Hazmat, Ohio, testified about the inherent. I'm so sorry. Faster. I'm getting. Expert Sil Caggiano. Currently consultant. Retired battalion chief of Next Fire and retired deputy chief. Testified that the inherent concerns of investigation, such as corrosive leaks, buildups of radioactive scale containing radium 226 and 228, strontium, and uranium. Chief Caggiano visited the location of the compressor station and assessed the site for incident risk. Additional hazards that would be associated with this particular project include difficult access for first responders in the event of an emergency and the danger of catastrophic failure exacerbated by the proximity of two nearby gas well pads. In regard to emergency preparedness and response, Chief Caggiano showed that there are gas industry trade secret chemicals that are not divulged on the safety data sheet. That's what it just. Lack of this kind of critical information presents enormous and unnecessary risk to first responders who will not be able to correctly assess harmful dangers and catastrophic events. Finally, there is an issue of massive amounts of radioactive wastewater, byproduct referred to as brine for its high salt content, which has also been shown to contain radium, radon, and other dangerous elements. The Marcellus shale formations exhibiting especially high radioactive content. This radioactive brine has been marketed by the gas industry as a cheap way to melt ice and suppress dust, and has been widely spread in Pennsylvania, also very anonymous poison allergies. Enough is enough. Our natural lands are precious, and they are entwined with our health as a human species, and they are in the process of being destroyed by aggressive and opaque gas company development. Some destruction is immediately observable, such as the clearing of our precious forested ecosystems to make way for the ever-increasing construction of gas well pads, pipelines, and related facilities. Other destructions may take years to understand, such as the compound damages and the associated impacts of the ongoing accumulation of toxic and radioactive particulates that are bodies and that are local bodies, waterways, and wetlands. The land that we live upon, the water that we drink, and the air that we breathe are all connected. Airborne particulate matter contaminated by radioactive elements does not recognize the boundaries of townships, or cities, or states, or nations. Neither do rivers or trees. The evidence is overwhelming that the proposed compressor station would incur profound environmental damage and would negatively impact human health, of which the resulting harm would continue for generations, easily extending beyond the boundaries of the ocean. The members of the zoning panel, so Patty, Jeff, Bill, Amanda, Mark, Judge Sweeney, Eric, code officer, and Porter. It is therefore your collective responsibility to protect the township and its neighbors by unanimously denying the permit for this ill-advised project on the grounds that it would be hazardous and detrimental to the health, safety, and welfare of our community and the adjacent communities. And remember, we all have the right to clean air and clean water. Thank you very much for your time.
Okay, continuing into subsided. Is anybody else? The microphone response. wish to address the board. Like the record reflect response. So at this time, the board has the option to discuss. If you wish. If you be open. Make some October. So if there needs to be motions, either let's test this matter, continue act. Is there a motion to close the hearing? Or continue to next? Is there a second? All fair? Aye. Aye. Opposed? So more than that. 45 days to issue plans of that. If Lucian's decision is for to takes a public vote, that would be October hearing. I talked to council, we had conversations last couple of meetings, I don't think they have any proposed findings, conclusions by Friday, September 27th. If you feel there are issues that you should consider, as this is a special exception. That is closed. So, solicitor. The next item on our agenda is the application. Jeffrey Bayard. Certain officer. He'll file 6 actually.